G'day. Yeah, I'm pretty nervous. This is my first talk, and they put me in the big hall. So see how it goes. So today's sermon, we're going to go through the preacher, me, the scripture, the game, and doctrines, some visual language that's already was established when I joined the game about 5 years ago. We'll look into how to leverage existing visual language to shortcut understanding. Bit of a toolkit, as I mentioned before, that might be handy. Designing for unconventional concepts and the limitations around icon usage in general. And then the sermon concludes. So a bit about me. I've been working as a UX, UI designer for the past 7 years in data-heavy software and games with various amounts of data in them. I wish there was some slides there, so I have to look back and forth, but it's all good. Yeah, I work on a bunch of different stuff with some friends in Australia under OtterSea Studios. We presented a game here last year. That was super fun. Currently working on a small game called Demon Bluff. And then, yeah, past 5 years, Cult to Lamb, over 300 icons. So, Cult to Lamb. Last year on this stage, Rami asked a question on his talk, who made Cult to Lamb? And people said Devolver Digital. They're our publisher. They give us some nice funding, but Massive Monster is the people behind it, mostly based in Australia, but there's a few other countries. So the game, just to get everyone on the same page, if you haven't played Cult to Lamb, you play as a little lamb, growing your cult full of woodland little creatures. The gameplay loop kind of pretty much follows dungeon crawling or crusades, gathering resources and followers, and then base building your cult. And then there's a couple little bits and pieces you can do in your cult. You can sacrifice your followers, you can perform rituals, you can get married, a lot of different weird concepts. The game came out in 2022. There's been three updates since, and earlier this year there was the first paid DLC. Small break. Righto. So the doctrines. So there was some visual principles that the team established, I think Julian and Jim. So symbols, keep it simple, repetitive patterns, graphic design and UI. So some motifs, a minimal color palette. The motifs are used across the game, not just in the UI. And then some abstract design for the non-essentials. UI style, there was kind of this idea of void of personality. You're a part of the cult. Keep the UI in the background. And for the icons, the main theme was keeping a central image and then having a bunch of motifs and decorative pieces around it, like a cult leader surrounded by its followers. So the most important thing with icon design, convey a meaning. That's the goal of it. That should be understood by the player, hopefully as quick as possible. And how do you do that? With the right metaphor. So to go over a couple metaphors, the first kind of point is to leverage existing visual language. What I mean by this is, you've already seen it today at the start of the opening. No smoking icon, pretty literal. No symbol, smoking symbol. Then we get to foods, which is typically, knife and fork, and then some acids warning, also pretty literal for that. My friend Jan Peter sent me this photo last week, also quite literal. I hope you know what it means. Pretty good example of understanding at a glance. And for Cult to Lamb, we do the exact same. In the top right, we've got working through the night, working through a blizzard, and then we've got no food and burning animals to keep warm. A bunch of little bits and pieces, including poop, drew lots of poop. So keeping it literal there. The other one's abstract. These are concepts that don't have often a physical thing that it explicitly references, but you can use kind of a shared language that we've all come to know, such as four-leaf clover for luck. This can vary depending on the country. And same thing with marriage, with interlocking rings. Birds being let out of a cage for freedom, or chains being broken could be another. Holiday is like sitting on the beach with a nice umbrella. Resurrection, coming up from the grave. And murder could be chalk on the ground or a knife or something like that. This is kind of good to, we all have this understanding of, okay, here's a concept, and just kind of simplify it into an icon to quickly be understood. The game world is a third point, pretty easy to use. A bunch of different objects that we have in the games, and then the icons reference this. Just a simplified version, stylized, but ideally there's some sort of connection to the actual game itself. It would say snow lamb, for an example, for it to be easily referenced if it's not too understood. What I think is a pretty powerful tool is combining icons together. Typically recommend 2 icons, 3 might be a bit stretching it. But for example, I have these chaos tarot cards, these corrupt ones. You've got a sad one, and then more of a happy one, a good one. And anything involving time or a cooldown has a clock next to it. And for the achievements, we've got a bunch of bosses. When you defeat them, you get the achievements, but if you defeat it without taking damage, we note that with a little sword. The sword doesn't really mean anything, like it's not one of these literal or abstract icons, but at least it's there as a differentiator and a note. Also, same thing here, some traits, burning animals and burning corpses. A unhappy divorce, so we've got the interlocking rings back again, but broken with an unhappy face, of course. A snow lamb, it's permafrost, it's able to survive the summer, and then followers disliking this poor little snow lamb. Yeah, and then classic combination of icons. All right, so the toolkit. These aren't necessarily icons, but like little bits and pieces that you can decorate around your icon to convey a particular meaning. You could have, for an example, show movements with some lines. This is really helpful with weapons. You can already get a sense of how they move in the game. The no symbol to remove or deny something. The plus can be to increase, to add. The arrows can also be for increase, but also decrease. Works obviously well. Next repeats change. So for example, hearts into tarot cards. Radiating lines can give some emphasis to a particular area. It could be a good thing, a bad thing, something breaking, or something being special. A hourglass or a clock, these are both metaphors that work for time, for cooldowns. Sparkles, like something is pure, something is special, something is clean. And then hearts, of course, love or health related. So for example, loving old people on the right there. But what about the unconventional concepts? The ones that don't quite fit what we already know, what our shared language. What I have tried to do in the past, what I typically try is just Google what it is, like relic icon, see what pops up. Is there a common theme? Here, not really. Like we've got some, we've got some bits and pieces, some swords, some ruins. Brainwashing, similar thing. You see some things, but not too much of a consensus. And then death, we see a skull, a Grim Reaper, and a gravestone. What I have found to be quite helpful is to avoid having icon on there and just Google relics. Just Google brainwashing and death. That's why I said my search history is kind of weird, because now we've got cannibalism, nudism, some other crazy stuff, vomit and poop, yeah. And then just kind of see the themes. So it's slightly different to the icons we saw. We see some skulls, we see some, the Grim Reaper is still coming back, relics. have some ornate details to it. For relics, I was playing a lot of Civ at the time, so I actually referenced some of its relics and decided to go with a Holy Grail as like a base for a bunch of different icons. So this is a relic, and then they have different themes for each of these relics. And same things with like a relic and a curse pack. Kind of went with a chest because there was no one specific thing in game that I referenced. It was just a collection of items. So sometimes there's no wheel, so you have to invent the wheel. So brainwashing turned out to be this. You brainwash followers with some mushrooms. And there's a doctrine here about essentially being friendly to death or welcoming it. So Grim Reaper is the method I used with a friendly wave to it. The anarchy symbol, I kind of took inspiration for a ritual that you can do that followers just cause havoc everywhere. They tear things down, they fight and everything. And then nudism, there's this little game, skin or robe. So I just kind of followed that. It's a classic one. And then he's very happy, of course, that he's in the nude. Sometimes you just got to invent the feel. Like there's no particular thing or object that was particularly found. So you just kind of feel what is it like to be befuddled, confused, or possessed. And then try it, how do I convert this into an icon? But naturally, there can be concepts that are quite difficult to portray in an icon. So there's some time for the understanding of the player. It's not as quick as the other ones. So we come to limitations. The icon is doing too much. That's definitely a limitation. It's too complex. The question to ask yourself is it readable? Is it understandable to the player? That's constantly should be top of your mind. Consider the size in the UI. So where does it fit? How big is it? Is it still readable at that size? If you're sitting on a couch and the TV is far away, can you still read the icon? And also, relying only on icons leaves it open to misinterpretation. For an example, we have this crusade map with a bunch of icons here. There's no text to explain it. And you end up with a bunch of articles and Reddit posts about what does this icon mean. There's something that could be said about doing this on purpose in game design, especially in the case of a crusade, like a dungeon crawl. Because, yeah, it gives a bit of mystery to the player. Like, okay, what does this icon mean? What is this room going to be? Click it, find out. If you were told up front, maybe you'll be less inclined to go there. So your icon's doing too much, support it. You can definitely go with just an icon on the screen, no label to support it. It's definitely visually appealing, I hope. There's no reading required. I love that. My name's Reid, but I don't like to read. But it's open to misinterpretation. A label only is very explicit, but unfortunately it does involve reading. And it costs for translations as well. The combination of the both is perhaps most ideal. You don't rely so much on the icon, but you can be very explicit with giving a label, hopefully a description, to bring that icon a bit closer to home, a bit quicker understanding. So you can see it at a glance, but they can get some clarification. It does take up more space, so I would recommend either on hover or on click, you can explain this information. But of course, yeah, there's translation costs. It's all a balance. And the point about visual noise, obviously it depends on your layout, but there could be a lot happening. Small. Right, so the game has been out for over 5 years, or 5 years, I'm not too sure. Or I think less. So we ran into a couple of issues, especially with the latest DLC. We kind of ran out of color sets to use. For the doctrines, the initial bunch here was added on release, and then there was the set for the Sins of the Flesh, and then more recently for Woolhaven up the top. And then we ran into similar concepts as well. So for example, there was something around cannibalism when the game was released, and for Sins in the Flesh, another theme of cannibalism came about. So have to use a different metaphor, but still this idea of consuming and flesh came about. And then similar with marriage, the first one, you can marry a follower, and then we allowed the player to marry followers together. So interlocking rings, as I mentioned before, but needed a slightly different metaphor for a different concept. So two followers, two figures with a love heart, they're interlocking, similar to the rings. And how to design for that scalability that I mentioned. We ran out of colors, but I experimented with texture. The nice thing is it was winter themed, so I tried to figure out how can I get like a kind of a frost look to it. So it's just a slightly lighter blue with a texture over the top. It might do the trick, but it's still pretty close to home. No idea what happens if we add more to this, more colors. That's a later me problem. And style as well. For different icon usages, I have a different style for doctrines, for the Crusade, Twitch integrations, and the achievements. They all follow a similar style, but just have, similar concepts. They're simple. They have that principle of the central icon with things around it, potentially. But yeah, the style is indeed different. Something I want to maybe explore next time, especially if it gets too intense, is this idea of class or type or color icons. I don't play Magic the Gathering, but I know that this exists, where they denote the type of cards with the icon on the top right. And maybe we can do something with that, where you have this icon as the central image or a combination of icons, and then always in the top right or a place in the UI where you can devote to the type of icon that it belongs to. Kind of a weird slide because it's just experimenting. So that's the end of the talk. Some takeaways. Number one, most important, convey a meaning using the right metaphor. Leverage existing visual language to lower the learning curve. Combine icons to get that more complex meaning, but be careful of going too crazy. High-level research for those weird concepts. Be careful of your browser history, maybe incognito mode or VPNs. And consider the aesthetics versus understanding. It might look nice, but can the player understand it? Do you need a label next to your icon? And then tools for scalability, color, maybe texture as well, style, and the type icon can be your friends if you have over 300 or something icons if you're really running into this issue. Cheers. Thanks for bearing with me. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Reid. We have time for just one quick question. One quick question, because anyone? The mic is coming to you. I can see someone running with the mic.
Hello, thank you for the talk. It was really insightful. Something that I was wondering about, that with the creation of the icons, of course, you're looking for your references via Google, but there are certain iconography that might have different meanings in different cultures. So I'm wondering how high of a priority is something like that when you're creating this for a game that's going to be accessible from anywhere?
Yep, great question. For us, indeed, our main audience we knew was going to be Western markets, so personally, I didn't have to think too much about that. I think if you are concerned with the icon not being understood quick enough by your target audience, then look into labels. Or perhaps find a more abstract concept if you're afraid with it being potentially too controversial or touchy with other audiences. Something that might give across the feeling, but definitely use a label or a description to make sure the player understands it.
So it can just be translated, I guess.
Indeed. There's some translation costs, but one word is okay, right? So.